customers adopt Power Platform. And I'm joined with Ramakrishnan. He's a software engineer in our PowerCAT team. And Ramakrishnan, just want to kind of briefly introduce yourself, or we can jump into the agenda after that.
The brief introduction would be that I am an ex-consultant, was working primarily on M365 side of the house. It's been a couple of years now into the low-code, no-code revolution, working along with PowerCAT and trying to understand the whole system and trying to deliver a couple of kits which would be helpful for most of the organizations out there. So that's pretty much from my side. Yeah, Grant, please take it away.
Okay, excellent. Let's jump on into it. So today, what I want to just go through is just, again, briefly introduce who we are as PowerCAT, and then we're going to go through, look at some of the approvals in terms of why business approvals are useful in automation, what we're doing between the approvals out of the box connector and the approvals kit. And then I want to hand it over to Ramakrishnan to go through an example of what the approvals kit is, how it works. And then I'm going to go cover just, how do you start learning it? What's your learning path of understanding what the approvals kit is. And then at the end of it, we're just going to go look at, once we release this as a public GitHub project, what's next? What are some of the things that we want to go look at? How can we improve this? And part of this is getting your feedback in terms of, are those features important to you? What are the things that are important to you as you look at automating approvals? So that's pretty much the process today. As we go through, feel free to put your hands up. If we've got time, we can go through and answer questions. And as I said, Galan said at the start, happy to kind of have some Q&A at the end of the process. So it's kind of your session to kind of get it through, get an idea of what the approvals kit is, and happy to kind of take it however works for you in terms of what's important to you. Okay. So just quickly, who's PowerCAT? So PowerCAT, as I said, is part of the customer advisory team. We're part of the Power Platform engineering team. And our overall team provides guidance, but particularly we're within the tooling team. So we create open source tools where there's gaps between what the customers are looking for and where the core engineering team creates features. And we kind of create open source low code solutions on top of the platform to close those gaps. So the approvals kit is going to be one of the new kits that we're going to add to the family of kits that we create. So the starter kit is one of the tools we create in terms of managing tenants. We've got other kits around managing automation or the creator kit for modern user interfaces. We've got other ones around interacting with database. So this is going to be a new kit that we're going to add to this process. And particularly, it's focused on approvals, because approvals are kind of key to on business processes. And apart from the statistics in terms of why and automating those processes in the business affects, a lot of our key customers are already using the out-of-the-box approvals connector. So what I want to do is just run through a couple of examples of where we see this as useful, and then compare the out-of-the-box approvals connector with what we're doing with the approvals kit. So if you're using approvals already, you've got these kind of key scenarios around like document approvals. As documents come in, you may have process ones where you're out of office and you may need multiple levels of approvals, or you've got approvals as part of a bigger process. And what we generally see is there's kind of these three personas. We've got a Power Platform admin to say, okay, how do you go set up and install the solutions and the kits and the DLP policy? You've got an approvals administrator that wants to just go model and design and interact doing approvals processes. And then you've got someone who's just an approver that just wants to go approve it as part of their business process. So each of those different personas will have different needs. And as we go through the kit, you'll see how each of those different personas are kind of catered by the automation, the approvals kit. But it can get complicated pretty quickly. If you've got a large organization with lots of different departments between sales, maybe your call center, and each of those centers would have different levels of approvals for. Lee may just be wanting to sign off on equipment. That may need to go through to a manager. And depending on the level of the manager and the value of the asset they're trying to give out, that may need to make different levels of approvals. There may be different scenarios that need to be driven by the call center. The audit team wants to go look at these different approval types and then bring that together. And you've got the overall COE kind of lead, the low code lead that wants to kind of manage and govern this. So all of these are kind of make it complicated to go set up approvals. And that's kind of the reason we bought the approvals kit together. So we've got the pre-built approvals connector. It handles basic approvals. It's generally available. And with the approvals kit, which you're going to be releasing really soon, it's built on top of the approvals connector. It adds in some of the other kits that we create for the Creator kit to add a modern interface. And we bring together a Power App, some Power Automate, and some Dataverse to pre-package a solution that makes it easy for you. And then we have a custom connector that enables it to kind of almost become like a drop-in replacement and extend out what the approvals connector does. So let me just kind of quickly go through what some of the key differences are. And then we're going to go switch across to just having a look at a little bit of a demo of this. So the key reason we did the approvals kit was to handle those more complicated business scenarios of those different departments between sales, between handling the call center, handling the audit requirements. So you can see that history. You can handle those different levels of approvals. We might have a self-approval, may need to go to a manager approval, and depending on the level of the approval, it may need to go above that. And then handle scenarios where the approver is out of office. How can you delegate to someone? If I nominate that I'm going to be the approver, if I'm out of office, how do I delegate to Ramakrishnan? And then how would I handle work days or holidays differently in different locations? And you can do all of those kind of using the out of the box connector, but you're going to assemble a combination of components to make it happen. But with the approvals kit, we've kind of packaged all that together into one solution you can install and set it up. So what I want to do now is leave this first part of the presentation, which is just kind of just setting some context and kind of just switch gears and show this working and just show by example. So what I'd like to do is just hand over to you to Ramakrishnan to just go through this. I can show you did you want me to just show the first slide just to talk about the overall process, Ramakrishnan? So I'll go to this one here and then Ramakrishnan, just away to you to kind of just to demo this scenario.
Sure. In this particular slide, you would see that there is a Contoso coffee machine request. And before I just explain this slide, I don't want anyone to just bound to this imagination of this Contoso coffee machine request. It could be n number of possibilities or the approval system that you might have encountered so far, or you would have seen in your daily day-to-day activities in your organization. So just don't bound to this particular flow that I'm explaining you. This could be an leave request, an invoice process automation, and number of things that can be drilled down to while using approvals kit. So just talking about this particular example here, if a person goes into a Contoso coffee machine request app, he requests a particular machine based on the pricing. And if the pricing is greater than $400, it will go for a particular set of approvals. So based on the self-approval, once the self-approval is done, it will go to a particular member who is instead is being assigned as an approver, who has the authority to approve that machine. And then based on that approval, the next set of activities would go in. So this set of activities is typically being followed in a couple of examples. So you would also see such examples where a member in your organization have taken a number of days leave, and if it falls under, maybe for example, if a leave is greater than a 1 week business day or 5 business days, then it would go to your supervisor or his supervisor for certain approvals. And there could be scenarios where an invoice processing automation, if the invoice goes or beyond a particular limit, it would go to a certain multi-stage approvals. So I just wanted to give some certain examples, but let's see this example in action in the demo right now. So I share my screen and we can go through it. So here's before I explain, I just wanted to confirm if everyone is able to see my screen.
Yeah.
Cool. So this is a Contoso machine app. This is a app that already exists just for explaining how Dataverse works. So as soon as a person requests or make a request to an app, purchasing a particular coffee machine. He submits a machine request. So what happens behind the scene is it makes an entry into the Dataverse table. And that is actually the triggering point for the approval system in place. So here, I would want everyone to imagine that you might have your own data sources right now. So for example, if you have any leave requests where you are making requests into a SharePoint list or any other possibilities. So there will be certain triggering point where you can actually trigger a flow. In this case, since this is a data was table, we can always trigger a Power Automate to capture all the details that are there in that particular record and execute next set of activities. So here, once this is done, what we can see now that there is a machine request app behind the scene, which gets triggered. And if you see inside that particular flow, you would see that the details that I have entered in the app is now being captured by this Power Automate. And also there is a custom connector, which comes part of the business approval kit, has also made an entry into the Dataverse. So as you can see that it has captured all the details, and I'll explain on what exactly this does behind the scene. Um, so this has captured the price and the name of that particular machine, and it has executed a particular business process template. And what this business process template is, I'll explain you right away. So let me go back to the business approval kit app, which comes as part of the business approval kit itself, the solution itself. And if, let me first show you the actual business template that uh, will capture all the details and send out the approvals based on the fashion that we have defined in that template. So for that, I'll go to the approval designer. So this is the machine request, that is the template that I was explaining earlier. And there is a process designer, which is the core part of the approval kit, where you can basically define all the stages and steps in a low code, no code fashion. So you don't have to have any technical knowledge in order to set up this process. So in our case, as you would have seen in that flow, the first step is to do a self approval. And then for the sake of this demo, I have kept the same member to do the next set of approvals. So on the first stage, you would see that once the first step or the stage is approved, you can, based on the pricing of that particular coffee machine, you can set a certain set of other members who can approve this. And the same way goes to the other set, where if the pricing is less than this, then you probably may want to have some other approvers who would want to make the approvals. And there are other ways by which you can categorize this approval. Is just not just if and else. It could be a switch where you would want multiple members to approve at the same time. So all these are categorized or taken into consideration. And you have an ability to edit or add a new flow. And along with that, you also have an option where if a particular approver is out of office, you can always specify some other member who can take action on their behalf. So in order to do that, you would want to specify if it is an out of office member. And for the whole application, behind the scene, we have a particular backup approver who would approve every request if those approvers who were initially placed in place were out of office. So that is one part of it. And since now that has already been executed, let's see what has happened behind the scene. So as you can see that it has behind the scene has called a couple of flows, which has triggered the approver action. So under the hood, it's still the approver action that it depends on. And you would see that it has asked for the self-approval of that particular coffee machine. And I can provide some comments on that just for my own record. And once I hit submit, you would see that since the coffee machine was more than $400, it would again come back to me asking for the next set of approval. But in reality, it would have gone to a particular member whom we have assigned in that particular process designer stage. So that is one. And if I head back to the app, I'll would like to show you how you can set the delegate permission. So the first set, or let me also explain you how you can configure a workflow. So the first stage is how you can actually create that process designer or the workflow. So this process designer, the process or the workflow, these are all interchangeable terms. But the idea is that there is a workflow that needs to be defined so that uh, the overall process can execute end to end. So as soon as I hit that create a workflow, you would see this particular screen, and you will be able to define the stages based on your requirement. And inside the stages, you will define each node, and this node which will represent the particular set of approvers who would approve that particular stage. So in order to do that, let me just say that first level approval. And there is a limitation right now that the first stage cannot have a condition. By condition, I mean the if else or the switch statement. So I'll hit save for now. And there was a typo, please ignore that. But once you save the stage, you will have an option where you can specify the node. And in here, you can actually specify the exact approver who would be approving your process on the first stage, and then so on and so forth. You can, in the upcoming stages, you can define whether if it is an if else or true or false kind of a condition based on maybe if the leave is greater than 4 days, then it should go to a particular member, or if an invoice process is greater than $400, then it should go to a particular approver, and so on and so forth. So it depends on which particular requirement that you're dealing with, and you can configure the process in such a fashion. And once you have done that, you would have to publish it. So right now, uh, this would take a more amount of time to explaining, but you would have to eventually publish the whole workflow in order for this to work. And in that, we have also made certain provision where you can define versions for it, the way you have in Cloud Flows and Power Apps, where you can roll back to a particular version or publish a particular version based on your requirement. So we have those taken into consideration as well. And if I head back to the teams this time, so as these are all approval action, you can basically take actions from anywhere, because you probably might know that approval action is being used all over, and it supports Teams, Outlook, and other M365 applications. So basically it would be pretty much easier for the approvers to take actions on any approval that is being thrown via this kit. So I can approve this one. So this would be the last set of approval that is required for this coffee machine. And I hope you would have got a better idea of how the overall workflow needs to be defined for this approval kit. Yeah, I'll be taking a look into the chat, but I think if there are any questions at this point, just on this demo, I would like to take those, and then I'll hand it over to Grant.
Yeah. Hi. Anybody has any questions? Maybe because you want to take the questions. If you are comfortable, also anyone can open up the mic and ask the questions regarding demo. Design discussions, you can ask right now. I think Hidayat, you're typing something. Okay. Yeah, there is a question actually. I can see Hidayat is asking, is there a feature to do bulk batch approving? I think Grant is answering the questions.
All right, then
Okay.
I'll hand it over to
Sure.
Grant then to take it away. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Sorry, I had one question regarding because in a lot of our cases, instead of user-based approval, we request for team-based approval. Anyone from the team can approve that particular request. Do we have that kind of features instead of user?
Okay, so by group, you mean a specific Office 365 group member who can approve the request, right?
In our database, we have team, right? User or teams. So we cannot use that the team, right?
Okay, that team is right now is not available. So you mean
I see.
access team who can
Yeah, it's the owner
set up
team,
it.
not the. Yeah, it can be access team. It can be owner team also.
Okay. So yeah, that is not available at this point, but we would make a note of it and see. Grant, you have anything on that front?
Yeah, it's not influenced at the moment. It is on the backlog. It's one of the features that we had from our preview customers that they're asking for that. But it's something that we don't have in the public release that will be coming out soon. But we prioritizing that based on customer feedback to kind of add that.
All right. So, but we can use the Dynamics, I mean, the Office 365 groups, right?
No, it's just named users at the moment. So we're looking at the two things you mentioned, is one using Teams groups and then also using security groups out of 365. So they're similar features that we have on the backlog that we don't have in this current release. So it's user-based at the moment. But the feedback we're looking for is, as you've mentioned, is like, how do we do group-based? So where Ramakrishnan showed the name of the user in that node, how do we enable you to put a group there instead rather than specifying a particular user?
I see. Okay.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Thanks. Yep. Thanks,
Grant, there is one question actually Hidayat asked. Maybe you want to take that question. Last question.
So you're asking about batch or bulk approving. Can you expand on that, or is it just? I think I get what you're meaning, but are you able to just kind of come onto mic and explain explicitly kind of what you're looking for there?
Yeah. Okay. Hidayat, you want to open up your mic and ask the questions instead of typing? I think he's typing to answer you.
Okay.
Okay. Maybe Ram, you can answer on the backend.
Okay.
Maybe can't you proceed further?
Okay, not a problem. Let me share my screen again.
Sure.
Hi, sorry, I'm outside at the moment. So actually, my question is whether the approvers has the ability to approve multiple requests at a time instead of one request. So I'm just looking at a document approval perspective.
I get it. So if you're saying, so let me repeat that. So if you had multiple document or multiple machine requests that came through overnight, for example, and you came back in the morning, would you have to go through each request and approve it versus going, I see these 5 machine requests like Ramakrishnan showed, and I like to approve them all at the same time? Would that be a good summary of what you're asking?
That's exactly correct.
Okay. At the moment, no. It is based on the approvals connector, so you would need to do each one individually. But I get the request. What you're looking for is saying, is there an ability to batch, aggregate those up and say, okay, there's these 5 approvals that have come through to me. Can I just do them in one batch? But at the moment, so the answer is no, not at the moment. But that's a good feature request that you'd like to aggregate that up, so you could just do one set of approvals and look at the details.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That makes it. I mean, the request makes sense, but at the moment we don't have that kind of batch approval feature at the moment. Okay. Anything other questions? Otherwise, I'll continue on.
Maybe you continue. There is no more questions. Thanks.
Okay. Fantastic. Okay. So we kind of went through this demo here. We showed how we could trigger from multiple locations, and it could be, we just showed from Dataverse, but it could have come from a SharePoint list, or it could have come from SAP or any other solution. You could go inside that area of the square. You had it's kind of a black box approach where you can configure that in the designer that Ramakrishnan showed. And at the end of that, you could then trigger from that Dataverse and go update any system where you came from as a result of what occurs as part of that approval process. So I'm just going to go from this and just look at, what have we got in terms of helping you to learn this? And there's 3 main learning paths we've got. So the first one is kind of what we're showing today, is just like understanding our Learn documents in terms of what is the approvals kit. So it's kind of like level 100 where there's 2 personas we see in here. So as a person that wants to either make approvals or someone that wants to set up and design an approval process, this link will go live once we actually publish, where you can go through to the approvals kit and it'll explain what the approvals kit is, how it works, how do you set it up. And the other side of it is the setup. If you're a administrator of an environment, how do you go install the approvals kit into an environment? It talks through what are the connectors that you need and what are the licenses that you need to set it up. The next one is a level 2 is like, okay, we have a learn module. So it's a learning module in the Microsoft Learn. We can go through, get your hands on using the approvals kit. And it basically goes through the Contoso Coffee example that Ramakrishnan showed, where you go through, you start with just creating an approval for a machine request, then you go through the process of building up that approval process, so you can get, by the end of it, you can see how you built a multi-stage approval and how you handle out of office. And the third stage is like, okay, I'd like to take a group of people through this process. How would I go set up an environment where I could go create, say, 30 developer environments and then have everyone in those development environments already have the Contoso Coffee installed, already have the approval kit installed, and they could use their development environment to go run through this process. So those are the 3 kind of stages we can see as you go through this learning path. And the key to it really is we've got this kind of learning module in the middle where there's 2 ways you can go through this. You'll be able to go through this as a self-guided approach where you can just get a development environment or an environment that's been allocated to you, install the Contoso Coffee, install the approvals kit, and just run through the learning path. Or the other part is you could go set this run this up as a group. So maybe if you want to go to run through this through the department and you'd like to get 20 environments created and run through this, and everyone wants to run through this lab. So those are the two ways that we see people could run through this, and the learning module will help with that. Any questions there on just on the learning paths, what we've got? And I know there were some questions, if I go back to the previous slide, around licenses. And generally the licenses you have, it is, if you're an approver, you're just going to need Outlook or access to the Microsoft Power Automate portal to do those approvals. So you don't necessarily need any Power Platform licenses. It'll be more Office 365 or access to the Power Automate portal. If you're someone that's constructing an approval, so you're actually designing an approval, you can need a Power Apps license. And if you're actually the person building the Power Automate Cloudflow like Ramakrishnan showed, you'd need a Power Automate Premium license to go create and publish that Cloudflow. And then you'll need a Power Automate Service license for the kind of running that as a background task for that Cloudflows that go behind the approvals kit. So hopefully that kind of covers some of the licensing and setup. And there's a custom connector. So you'll need to install a custom connector, enable your DLP policy to allow the connectors in an environment that the approvals kit uses, the custom connector, and set up a Microsoft Entra or Azure Active Directory application, as it used to be called, that it uses to run that custom connector. But that's kind of covered in that first part of the learning path. There's a setup guide there for the IT kind of persona to go set that up. And the other learning path here is more as a user setting it up. At the end of that, kind of go through this approval process, and this more from an IT persona here of how would I enable to go set up a group of environments for a group of learners to run through. Any questions on that? Okay. So the next part of it, I just want to switch gears a little bit from this and just give you an idea of what are some of the things that we're thinking about next, and also kind of building on those kind of comments we had earlier of like, what are features that you'd like to see, like the bulk approval, or I'd like to see a security group. So this is an opportunity to kind of have an idea of what we're thinking about next, but also get your feedback on what are features that you'd like to see in the approval kit to improve it. So the first one of the things that we're looking at is the ability to have your own Power App approval card. And using your own Power App approval card, you could go add your own connectors or business logic to go customize the experience. So for example, in your approval, you could put a link to this Power App card, and you might want to say, okay, I've started this approval, but I could go see all the other approvals are there, and you could use that to do a a bulk approval. I might want to see the history of other approvals that I've done. So when I'm doing this approval, I could see other similar requests that I've done. So they're giving you the ability to customize this approach where you could bring in your own card as part of the approval process. If we had this, obviously the user of this would need a Power Apps license to go execute this approval card. The next one we're looking at is more from a template point of view, is rather than kind of starting from scratch and just defining all the stages, would it be useful for us to go create additional kind of templates depending on the industry so that we could start in, as you select one of these templates, that it would automatically populate the stages and the input data that you'd need to go through these different scenarios, so that you could start with a template and then take away the pieces or customize it based on who you are. And the third one is kind of just thinking about, given with our announcements around Copilot, could we use a more Copilot approach to enable you to use natural language? So rather than you having to go define all those steps graphically, could we enable you to use human language to go define that and automatically set in your process designer? So those are just some of the features that we have on our backlog. In our GitHub repository, we do have a longer list of these are some of the things that we've had from our preview customers that we prioritize based on customer feedback and look at improving month on month on the kit. So at that point, really, it's kind of over to you. Like, out of what you've seen, what things would you like to dive into? What have you got questions on, either what you've seen or thoughts around where the kit could go, or questions around what its features are?
Hey Grant, thanks for the walking us through with this approval kit, and I can see lots of use cases around that. And definitely, talking about what could be the what could be the next set of features that would make that will help the business. I would definitely vote against the. I will vote towards the using Dataverse security model. As a teams and security roles as such.
Yep.
Because we're gonna use a lot of we have lots of use cases around the Dataverse. And second thing is definitely in align with the whole Copilot situation that's going on. So if we can have that natural language processing capability built in as part of the approval kit, that would be helpful as well to define someone what they want based on the current data, and then that should help us to that. That will be my feedback. But I have a question around that. When you're talking about the using this approval kit, not just for the Dataverse data or from a SharePoint data, also you mentioned about using it for the other data that gets integrated, like SAP data and other ERP, with this. So I'm not sure how that data gets connected to the approval kit. Is it mandatory? I mean, is it a prerequisite to have those data loaded into Dataverse first before this can be it can be used in the approval kit, or it can be directly connected via virtual table or something like that, or API? I'm not sure.
Yeah, so great question. So let me give you this example. So I've just got the Cloudflow there that Ramakrishnan was showing earlier. We just happen to pick the Dataverse trigger, but you could pick any of the other triggers that have come in as part of a Cloudflow. So this could be something coming from a SQL Server table or a SharePoint or SAP or any of the other triggers that you've got. So you could go build this up. So one of the examples that I asked when I demonstrated this last is someone had a process where they said, okay, I want to go automatically generate a PDF document. They could then generate the PDF document in their Cloudflow and get a link to that. And when I was in this process here, I could go use the parameters of this, and I could then go add in the link to that document here as additional information. So while I'm showing a very simple Cloudflow here, I could go build up any number of steps here of multiple different triggers and have multiple steps to build up data here in this Cloudflow, pass this through here to say the name and the price here as part of this, and then that would then go through to this approval process. So that's kind of the two parts. So one is when you define the Cloudflow, defining the series of steps, then calling the process, And then we kind of step over to the second part here, which is more of the process design, and saying, now that you've got this name and price passed through, then we can go through it to whatever the designed process is. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, got it. Okay, so it's more of a trigger based in where you use the different data, but from the process designer itself to work it. So obviously it's meant to be in Dataverse, I assume, isn't it? Any sort of users or connections we are referring here.
Yeah, so exactly. So the data here, when you set this up, it will go through and you define what the input parameters to this is, and it gets saved into the environment.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
And
so
how is it?
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, how does it comply with the ALM process? Like once we have, it will be part of just the Power Automate, isn't it?
So the way it works, it's part of the publishing process. When you create that, it stores the data into different records inside Dataverse. So when you're in this environment, you go through the publishing process, it will create that version. So it'll create a different version as you publish it.
Got it. Okay. Okay. And if you want to resume any already built business processes to a different, maybe a backup dev environment or something like that, once we have those records stored in the Dataverse, when we open the process designer, it should be able to pick up that records.
Yeah, if you're doing multiple, if you want to do this across multiple environments, you need to transfer the data records between the Dataverse records between the different environments.
Perfect. It's just data migration.
It's data migration. Exactly.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any other questions?
Sanjeev, I see you. And Rice, please go ahead.
Yeah, yes. Thanks a lot, Jivan. So nice hearing your voice, buddy, after a long time. So Grant and Ramakrishnan, thank you very much for being here, enlightening us. And I'm terribly sorry I missed most of it because I was actually with my kid at the parent teachers, you know, and I completely forgot about it. And, you know, so I assume this has got to do with approvals, if I'm not mistaken, and any kind of approval, multi-layer approval, so on and so forth, isn't it? Am I?
Yeah, that's pretty much a good summary of. I'll just go back just because you missed the first part. I'll just quickly just show the demo that we started with, and let me.
Very kind, sir. Extraordinarily kind of you. You know.
Not a problem. Let me just go back to this. Let me know where you can see my screen again. So the example that we showed was an example where we had the app in a day Contoso coffee application. And that was just basically you go request a machine and it took the name and price of it. And then inside this black area is basically the approval process where we defined a multiple layer approval process to say, based on the name and price, if it's less than $400 and if the person approves it, it's complete. But if the value is greater than $400, we could then come in and go through a manager approval to make, and then once they approved it, then it would complete the process.
Gotcha.
So you could go through those different steps of defining it. So if we're going to come back to the features between that and the standard connector, it kind of has that approval history. We have multiple stages. We can delegate when you're out of the office to other people to take over those approvals, handle people with different workday schedules. So we kind of package those things that you can do, but you need to build a custom solution, building the out-of-the-box approvals connector. Whereas in the approvals kit, we kind of add those things together into a solution that you can install to make the process easier. So hopefully that gives you a very super quick kind of summary.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And as a matter of fact, we're actually designing something for a customer. And the scenario here is multiple people per level. And then at each level, you can either say first to respond or anyone can respond. So that's the choice that we're providing to the customer. And we're triggering this from the app itself as an instant flow and going through. The only thing I wanted to check with you is when we store the data, given that there are multiple people to this and multiple levels to this, instead of creating columns for approvers and approval stages and then, status and the comments, we're trying to load that into a single cell in SharePoint using a JSON, format, and then populating the JSON so that we don't run into, because, there could be 10 approvers or 5, so we can't actually plan for that, Does this handle that?
It does. It's got a basically we've got a data model. So every one of those records and nodes is a record inside Dataverse. So we can have
a
first to
record.
approve and multiple approvers as part of the process. So that core functionality is there.
So sorry, Grant, to interject over there. When you
Sure.
say, so each approval, like let's say you're my manager and Jeeva's your manager, so your approval is going to be a line item as opposed to a column. Am I right?
Yeah, let me just quickly, I'll just jump across to some of the docs that we're going to go live on. So and again, I'll just jump into a little bit of detail behind it and hopefully, so there's some design timetables where we model out the stages and the nodes, and those are stored as Dataverse records.
Yeah.
Then when we go publish it, we then store that as multiple runtime definition records saying, here's the published versions of those cloud flows. And then as you go through each stage and node, those are individual records inside there's some runtime tables.
Let me just stop you there. When you say individual records, they're individual line items in the database.
They're individual records in the database. So as the first stage came in, there'd be a first stage approval. It'd say, okay, that record is now complete and there's a successful outcome. It says, okay, is there another stage to complete? Yes, because the value of that was above $400, it creates another record for this next stage approver. Then it gets the outcome of that.
Gotcha. So in order for me to get all the approvals, let us say to show all the approvals, is there like a primary key that corresponds to the, I would say, multiple foreign keys per record? Is there one attribute that I could actually pull to show me?
Yes, there is. There is. Overall, there's a instance for a workflow that shows all of these individual nodes and stages are related. So it's a hierarchical kind of summary, and I could go down to the data model beneath this if you wanted to, which is further down, where we kind of just.
Oh, lovely, lovely. That's what.
So we have a data model kind of just saying, here are our relational tables that represent the process.
Gotcha.
These are our relational tables that represent the workflow versions you're published. And these ones in black are the ones, the relational tables it uses for the individual instances and nodes.
Gotcha. Does this then does this then have to be a paid, premium version, not the seeded one on Microsoft 365?
Great question. We've designed this with Dataverse in mind because we just picked the features of the platform that make sense. So this features would not work with the seeded because we're using Dataverse. So
I see.
For the approver, the approver is just using whatever seeded licenses you want to do the approver. The person that's actually designing the process and the cloud flow behind it, obviously those are premium things because you're using the business approval management application, which is a Power App, and it's using Dataverse behind it.
Right. So everybody who is going to be using this app with this approval process will have to have a premium license.
No. So I'll go back to, because it's a great question.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, it's fine. It's a common question that we get here. So if you think of these three personas, the approver, Charlotte, who's the administrator that designs and publishes workflows, and then you've got the IT administrator. So this approver persona, they don't need a Power App or a Dataverse license. They're just approving approvals that come to them. So that's the bulk of the users. In Teams, in Outlook, or in the Power Apps, the Power Platform portal.
Sorry, I got to be very careful here. I got to be sorry, Grant, because you're my manager, Jeeva's my manager. So I'm using the app, and to use the app that has a Dataverse connector, I need to actually have a premium license. Am I right? Because if I'm using SharePoint, the seeded version, then I don't need a license. But then if I'm actually using Dataverse to use the app, I need a license.
No, man, this one here, it's okay. This is actually, so Rebecca is being sent a approval from the standard connector. It's
from
the flow
the standard
service
connector.
The standard connector is sending the approval to Rebecca.
Gotcha.
We then we watch for the event coming back from Rebecca saying, I approve or decline. And that uses a Power automate license to look at that, the result of the standard connector, and write that back to our Dataverse table. So Rebecca doesn't need a license because Rebecca is getting the standard license sent to her and she does the approval. Then Charlotte is using the Power App, which does need a license for her design and monitor her flows.
Sorry, Grant, let me stop you because this is getting very interesting. So as Rebecca, if I want to know all my approvals in the app, then the table that is going to be reading the data of approvals is going to read it from Dataverse, isn't it?
Okay, if you want to go look at the status of all the approval requests that have been sent to me and things like that, that will need to talk to Database. But if I've just got the approval request tuning up into my inbox and approving them, that doesn't need a Database license.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Grant, I mean, I've done numerous here in Singapore, across larger organizations, smaller ones, whatever. The ultimate goal is that the approver and the administrator basically has to have a record of all their approvals, and they need to know the status of those approvals because there are multiple layers. Where is it stuck? As you were saying, like, who do I reassign it to, etc. For which, you could do it on Teams, but then a consolidated place would be the app itself, where it shows the line item and the status of those approvals. So. If I were to read between the lines now, that would mean that they need a premium license,
Correct. If they want to see the history and the approvals, the entire history of that outside the approval request that's sent to them, they would need the premium license because it's in Dataverse.
Gotcha, sir. Gotcha. And in terms of sorry, hogging the air here, but this is fantastic. In terms of the size of the database, because you're recording the approvals by line item and not by columns, there would be a lot of records created. Let us say there are 10 approvers. There would be a lot of records created just for one line item. Am I right?
It depends on how you configured it. If you'd said it's first approval, or it will record the 10 approvals that it sends out and the outcomes that come back from those approvals.
Yeah. So my database size could technically be large because, I mean, that's the reason why we were trying to do the JSON, because then in one box, you can have those 10 approvals and those statuses and comments, and then you read those, you parse the JSON back in the app, we were trying to see what is the best way of, like, because this is becoming increasingly common, and not just in smaller workflows. They're saying, hey, look, I want it for all of the company. And if they're like, 5,000 people, then you can just imagine how many records are created, right? So, but
obviously you need to go through your own data modeling size. We do publish the size of our database, and you could look at the volumes from that.
Yes. And then can we customize this?
We'll be publishing both the managed and unmanaged solution for this. This is an open source solution. If you do customize it, obviously any unmanaged layers that you'd have, and we update it, then you'd be responsible for merging those
100%,
changes.
100%. But fantastic work, sir. Thank you very much for doing this for us.
Sorry, Grant. Just last question from my side, if you don't mind. So talking about the persona Rebecca here, and she's just an approver, and she gets the approval request over the Teams. And let's say based on the action she takes, it gets updated in Dataverse. To make it more complex, it gets updated in one of the restricted entities. Let's take case, for example, which is part of the Dynamics 365 customer service. Restricted entity. So in that case, does she requires Dynamics license?
In that case, I'm just trying to think. So in the case that you're going to, so Rebecca would make the change that be recorded in our Dataverse table. You would need probably a Cloudflow that would listen to the change occurring in our Dataverse and go update that back to a case record, for example, back in Dynamics.
And
and that obviously the Cloudflow context of what that's running as would need a license to do that. And it would use whatever connectors it's using to go update to Dynamics or whatever backend service that you want to connect to.
Got it. That's fine. I think the connector Cloudflow can have a service account or anything like that. but that's
Yes.
not multiplexing, isn't it? I know it's a complex question.
Yeah, again, I'm not a licensing expert, so you'd
Yeah.
have to talk to you from a licensing point of view around the different licensing parts of Dynamics.
Got it.
But obviously, you'd need to just go talk through. But we're updating the Dataverse record, and then it'll be an integration from Dataverse to whatever backend service, and you need to honor the licenses of whatever the backend service that you're talking to.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think if there's it's a non-restricted entity, I think it's pretty much it's a standard. It's a great process what we have here. But yeah, I'll definitely check with the local Dynamics license team. But yeah, thank you so much, Grant. For patiently taking our questions and then walking us through with the approvals kit, and also for Ramakrishnan for walking us through the approval kit. I really appreciate your time. Yeah, it's been a great session. I really like the session, and I believe all of this as well.
Excellent. So we look forward to publishing it soon. And what you'll see there is once we publish it, you will see the docs guide there, the learning module, and another GitHub repository. We're putting the source code behind this.
Amazing. Thank you so much again for your time. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm just going to steal the screen for a couple of minutes just to walk us through our audience through the Ignite Book of News. If you don't mind, that's okay.
Not a problem.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I believe you have been quite busy with watching the Ignite sessions live and as such.
Sorry, Jiva. Jiva, terribly sorry. There is a question in the chat from Mr. Hidayat Mohammed. Could we quickly cover that? Mohammed, if you want to unmute, sir, kindly do so as well.
Sure. Let me just explain a little bit of my question. So let's say I have a 10-step approval process, and halfway through the approval gets rejected. Will the entire request be rejected, or can it be rolled back to the previous approval person? Thank you.
So the answer to that depends on how you define your workflow. You get a choice, like we showed an if and else. You get the yes, it got accepted or rejected. You'd make a choice to say, if it got rejected, would you like to move back to a different stage? It's a matter of you choosing the logic you want in the workflow to respond to that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. So there's the option to configure such a requirement.
Yep. Exactly. You can put some logic, say, based on the outcome of the previous node being rejected, what do you want to do? So the example we showed was based on price, but you could do it based on the result of a previous node. And then you could make a choice of what you want to do in the approval process. Hopefully that answers the question. I can go back onto chat to continue to answer that if you'd like.
Perfect. Thanks, Grant. Thanks for that. Yeah, just now before we wind up the session, I know we're running out of time. We started 5 minutes late, but it's been a great session from Grant, and then Ramakrishnan again answering all those questions patiently. And then it's still a new feature, and we can see the docs has been published already. It's good for us, to be good if you can go ahead and take a look at those documents, and then if there's any question, please feel free to reach out to us and see what we can do for that. And with that, just a quick recap of the Microsoft Ignite. So that has been happening for the last 3 days, and it's got over like today or last night in Singapore time. And to make sure if if you have missed the sessions, and if you want to go and review or see what you have missed, or you can always go to the Microsoft Ignite website, and then you can just go and filter the on-demand sessions from the session catalog, and you'll see all those recorded sessions. And based on that, you can filter, what kind of topic you're interested in. If you're interested in AI apps and then business applications, you can always go and take a look at those recorded sessions. And also you have something called Book of News, which is kind of a summary of what the Ignite session is all about. I don't see lots of stuff around the Power Platform, but I think when you mix and match Power Platform with Copilot and other things, you can see more sessions coming up here. for Dynamics 365 and Azure and also the Copilot stuff. So you can see now there are more features coming up here. So feel free to take a look at this, and and then it will have a reference to the, once you understand the sessions, and you can always have a link to the Ignite, and then now you can watch the full session from there as well. So you can use this as a catalog, and then from there you can navigate to the Ignite, and then you can watch them. If it's on demand, you will have the provision to watch it. Otherwise, it's pretty much over as it's been closed yesterday. Yeah. Bullock, over to you.
Yeah, I think that's all from my end. Actually, just I would like to call everyone, if anybody can turn on their camera. Just I'm not sure if we can take any pic or not in gallery view, but Sanjeev sir, anything from your end? And Jiva, yeah.
I just wanted to say, Golak, I mean, thank you so much for the heavy lifting, man, in the back end. You've been awesome. What this motivates me to do is to actually get back on the monthly schedule, you know. I mean, this is amazing stuff. And to me, I'm sorry, Grant, if I offend anybody, if you're coming from other teams, but to me, Power Platform is the best thing that has come out of Microsoft. You know, it is, forget about your AI, whatever. It allows me to bring my ideas to reality on my terms in a time frame of my choosing. You know, it is absolutely brilliant. So we would like to invite you to more sessions. And then we are really seriously getting excited about running this every month. We used to run, we've been running it once a quarter, given the plethora of online events that have been happening right now. So kindly do come back in, bring your friends over. We're super excited, you know, about this stuff. And we'll create. I think Mohammed is here. He's our friend from the Singapore. Is an awesome dev. Mohammed, we need at least 50 more people from your company the next time, buddy. Okay. I think he's playing with his kid. I think, right? 50 more from you, Mohammed. Okay.
Okay, I'll take that as a next year challenge.
Yes. Yes, and then you know, so Grant and Ramakrishnan, thank you so very much. You know, please come back in again. We'll kindly leave your contacts. We'll bug you. You know, for maybe a January meetup. We have a number of people from pharma who's actually interested here. Just FYI. So we'll bring those guys around as well, and get you guys really, really busy. Not that you're not. You know. So thank you very much, folks.
Yeah. Actually, thanks everyone. Actually, can anyone open up the camera if possible, because I can see only those 5 faces, to be very honest. Yeah, now I can see one more. Yeah, that's good.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Hey, Balash.
Yeah, because I'm just trying to take a gallery snapshot. I can post in the chat window. At least people can see what I can see. I'm not sure if everyone can see that or not.
Yeah.
Okay, let me.
Mohammed started a trend over there, right? Let's do the trend thing. What is? There you go.
Okay, let me click one more.
Hey, Golak, you too. I know you need your fingers, I suppose.
Sorry.
Cheers, guys.
Okay.
Nice. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, and thanks, Grant, for taking the time. Actually, it's late evening for you. We understand, but thank you so much for taking the time, and thanks, Ram, for giving the time on the weekends for you. And that's all from my end. If nothing from Sanjeev.
Come back, folks. Come back. Please come back. Yeah. Kindly leave your contacts in the chat window. Grant and Ramakrishnan will reach out to you again, man. Please come back maybe January, February. This is awesome topics, great interest. If you guys have anything else, please do come back for that as well. You know.
Yeah, actually, Sanjeev sir, you can get from email. You are there in the CC.
Oh, right.
So we can reach out.
Just look in the chat. You'll see our details there.
Lovely, sir. Lovely. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thank you so much. Thank you
so much. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
Happy weekend.
You too.
Thanks,
Cheers, guys.
Bye. Happy weekends.